You're listening to Rolling Recklessly, the podcast where dice hit the floor, paint gets spilled, and no game ever goes exactly as planned. I'm Grizzly, and here we dive headfirst into Warhammer, tabletop gaming, and the beautiful mess that is the hobby life. From epic crits to absolute disasters, we'll cover it all. So grab your minis, roll with me, and let's get reckless. Grab your dice, tighten your armor straps, and gather around the table, because today marks something special. Welcome back to Rolling Recklessly. I'm your host, Grizzly, and before we dive into anything Warhammer today, I just want to speak from the heart for a moment. I owe all of you an apology. Life hit hard over the last couple of months. Between getting back to work, things getting crazy, and the holidays taking over everything. It's just trying to juggle the real-world life responsibilities I have, and I haven't been able to put it out an episode since November 30th. And now, here we are, January 19th, and finally, back behind the mic. And honestly, I hated being away. Not just because I love recording the show, but because Rolling Recklessly stopped being part of just a podcast for me a long time ago. It became part of my hobbying journey, part of the community building, and part of my weekly rhythm. So stepping away, even unintentionally, felt wrong. But to everyone who stayed subscribed, kept following, waited patiently, and didn't go anywhere, thank you. That truly means more than I can say. So rather than just jump back in like nothing happened, I wanted to do this the right way. Today's episode is officially the season finale for 2025, a full year in review where we look back into everything this past year that brought us Age of Sigmar and Enrolling Recklessly. The armies, the tournaments, the hobby projects, the new players, the community growth, the podcast milestones, and lessons learned along the way, and what I'm hoping to see in 2026. Because 2025 wasn't just another year of Warhammer for me. It was the year that everything leveled up. This year the show became real. This year the local AOS scene just started to grow for us, and I couldn't think of a better way to closing it out than reflecting on the journey with all of you. So let's rewind into the mortal realms and roll through the year that it was. 2025 was, without an exaggeration, the most transformative year for me in Age of Sigmar. At the start of the year, my hobbying identity was simple and small. I was a Sylvaneth main, Casey had her Nurgle, and that was pretty much our Warhammer life. Trees and slime. A very clean life versus rot household theme. But as the months went on, something shifted. I stopped playing just occasionally and started fully diving into the hobby, learning rules deeper, experimenting with factions, and pushing myself creatively, and most importantly, playing constantly. This was the year my collection didn't just grow, it exploded. I went from basically one serious army to building and committing to Sylvaneth, Seraphon, Caradron Overlords, Gloomspite Gitz, Soulblight Gravelords, Hellsmiths of Hashut, Maggotkin of Nurgle, and finally, my newest and smallest addition to the end of the year, Idoneth Deepkin. And with each one of those armies represented a different phase of my growth as a player and as a hobbyist. Sylvaneth will always be my roots. That army taught me positioning, patience, movement shenanigans, and tactical restraint. It was the army that made me fall in love with AOS. But Seraphon came in like a meteor. That was my aggressive learning army. Monsters crashing into lines, Kroxigors smashing things, Carnosaurs eating flayers. That army taught me confidence and pressure. Then came in with the Caradron, which changed my brain entirely. KO forced me to think in angles, ranges, movement efficiency, and tempo. No magic, all guns, pure positioning, and that army felt like playing chess in the sky. It's also like one of the most fun armies to play that I've ever built. Gloomspite Gitz. This was a pure joy and chaos. Squigs bouncing everywhere, trolls stomping, manglers spinning across the board. That army fits my personality perfectly. Reckless, wild, dangerous, and unpredictable, and hilarious. We also have Soulblight. They taught me durability and recursion. Hellsmiths opened chaos for me. Nurgle expanded the rot side even deeper, and the Idoneth, that's my 2026 finesse project. Speed, timing, hit, and fade. But beyond armies, the biggest gameplay accomplishment was volume. I played more games in 2025 than any other year of my life. Jesse and I basically lived at the table through 2024-2025 GHB, and into the new one, we were grinding nonstop. Spearhead games, practice nights, 1K matches, play to help everyone learn, constant reps, and that's what sharpens me the most as a player. Christmas break was also a huge hobby surge for myself. I got the Soulblight Gravelords and the Gloomspite Gitz Battle Force boxes, the Dark Water game, a Deepkin Battle Tome, and one of their new heroes that came with that 2025 release. But what makes me proud isn't the buying, it's actually that I conquered my backlog this year. I didn't get rid of any armies. I didn't sell off any boxes. I built them. All my Seraphon, built. All my KO, except for one unit, built. All my Sylvaneth, built, based, and most of them even painted. How about Gitz? All built, some of them even painted. I turned stacks of shame into stacks of armies. That's something I'd never really done before. I leveled it up as a hobbyist this year, definitely. Sylvaneth also saw a massive painting progress. Most of my army is now fully painted and based. The only big intimidating heroes left are Drycha, Warsong, Alariel, and Lady of Vines. And those are on deck for 2026. And honestly, watching my friends grow alongside me might be the best accomplishment of all. This year wasn't just about building armies or getting better. It was about watching people and I play with and fall in love with the hobby the same way I did, and seeing them absolutely explode in progress. Zach's growth was insane. He came into Age of Sigmar with literally nothing. Brand new, learning the rules from scratch, figuring out movement, priority, basic combat, and by the end of 2025, he had over 5,000 points of slaves, not just sitting in boxes, not half built, fully assembled, mostly painted, and he's even getting them base now and table ready. He didn't just collect, he committed. Then he dove into Soulblight, and he got around 2,000 points of vampires and blood knights, and even grabbed a Scaventide box to branch out even further. Watching him go from new player trying to understand what Ren means to confidently piloting multiple armies was one of the coolest things I've seen happen in real time. And then we have Jesse. He crushed it too this year. He already had quite a bit, but he expanded quite a bit more with his Stormcast and his Skaven heavily this year, and built and primed nearly everything he picked up. And jumping headfirst into Khorne with around 200 or 2k points. But one of my favorite moments was seeing him pull someone else into the hobby. His girlfriend picking up Daughters of Cain spearheads and starting her own army. And that right there is how the hobby spreads. One person gets excited and it ripples outwards. Eric had a monster year as well. He powered through his Flesh Eater courts, built a full 2k army, and grabbed the Gargan spearhead to try something different. And honestly became one of the most consistent hobby grinders in the group. But for the moment, that meant the most to me personally when he bought my little sister her very first Warhammer box. He got her the Moon Clan Gloomspite Gitz spearhead, and seeing her open that and step into the hobby was such a full circle moment. That's the next generation right there. That's legacy stuff. And when I look at all of that, Zach leveling up, Jesse expanding and bringing others in, Eric growing his army and introducing my sister to Warhammer, it hits me that 2025 wasn't just a year of playing games. It was watching a group form, watching confidence grow, watching armies multiply, watching passion spread. We didn't just hobby this year. We built something together. And that's easily the greatest accomplishment of 2025. Going into 2025, I didn't walk in with like some massive strategy or 5-year Warhammer plan. I wasn't thinking, I'm going to build 8 armies, or start a podcast, or run events at stores. But my goal was actually simple. They were just and meaningful. I wanted to play Age of Sigmar more consistently. Not once every few months, not casually when the moon hit. I wanted to play AOS and make that my main game, and actually get real reps, and so I could grow as a player. I wanted to expand beyond Sylvaneth. I love my trees, I still do, but I didn't want to be locked into one faction forever. I wanted to understand the different mechanics, different strategies, and different ways armies win games. I wanted to stop letting my backlog pile up. I had stacks of boxes sitting around and I kept telling myself, one day, my goal was to finally build what I owned, and I feel I was actually progressing in that hobby. I have 4 full cases of built models now. I wanted to be involved in the local community, and not just show up and roll dice, but help grow the Age of Sigmar where I play. Bring people in, teach, encourage, and make this store feel alive for AOS. And creatively, I wanted to start something tied to Warhammer. Something that let me talk about the hobby, share stories, and build a space where people could feel connected. And that sparked turned into Rolling Recklessly. Looking back now, it's honestly wild how those small goals snowballed into something way bigger than I ever could have imagined. I didn't just play more, I played consistently, week after week, practice nights, Spearhead, 1K games, 2K games, learning every phase of the game deeper. I didn't just expand armies, I dove headfirst into multiple factions, learned their playstyles, built full spearheads, completely changed how I approached the table. I didn't just clear my backlog, I conquered it. I turned sealed boxes into built armies and became a hobbyist who actually finishes projects. I didn't just join a community, I helped build one. Tuesdays became AOS night. We hosted events, taught new players, grew Discord, watched people get hooked, and the creative goal? That turned into a weekly podcast that became part of my identity and part of our local scene. 2025 proved something important to me. Small hobbies, goals, plus consistency equals a massive transformation. And that's a lesson I'm going to carry into 2026. If I had to pick one word to describe my hobby life in 2025, it would be expansion. But if I had to pick the project that truly defined this year for me, it's hands down the Gloom Spike kits. This army was just pure joy from fun to start to finish. Squigs bouncing everywhere, manglers spinning across the battlefield like wrecking balls, bounders flying across the board, Gobblepalooza bringing weird little magic nonsense, rabble rouse of chaos, Loon King leadership. It was reckless, hilarious, unpredictable, and completely opposite from the clean, precise Sylvaneth playstyle I started with. Gits felt like embracing chaos in the best possible way. Every game was wild, every model had personality, and every build made me smile. And when I picked up the Trug Battle Force and started leaning into the Trolls too, that army went from fun to monstrous. It became a full-blown centerpiece project. Close behind that was starting the Caradron Overlords. KO was such a different hobby experience. Clean lines, armor plates, boats, balloons, goggles. It felt like building a steampunk navy in the sky. Magnetizing my frigate stand and assembling the Sky Wardens, Drekki. The whole army just looks incredible. Even though I don't own an Ironclad yet, it's become one of my dream centerpiece models because of how cool the range is. And then Sylvaneth still deserves its flowers. Getting most of my army painted and based this year was a massive milestone. Seeing that force that got me into AOS finally look cohesive felt extremely rewarding. It's still my heart army. In 2025, the year of my hobby stopped being about collecting boxes and became about building armies I genuinely love. If segment 1 was about armies and accomplishments, this segment is going to be about something even bigger. Because 2025 wasn't just a year I grew in Age of Sigmar. It was the year that the real community formed around it. And that start, it was just casual games. Me, Jesse, Zach, and a few armies hitting the tables here and there. But consistency is powerful. Showing up every Tuesday, playing regularly, teaching others, laughing at mistakes that slowly turned into something way bigger than 3 friends rolling dice. We started running Spearhead nights at J&J and suddenly people were curious. And then people were watching. And then people were asking questions. And then new players started showing up. Jackson, Chip, Devin, Mike, and more through Discord. And that's when it hit me. We weren't just playing games. We were building a space for the AOS locally. Starting the Discord was huge too. That gave us an online hub. Somewhere to talk about lists, share hobby progress, coordinate games, and welcome new players. Seeing it grow to 8-9 active members and actually stay lively was one of the coolest moments of the year. Hosting the first Spearhead tournament at J&J was also a massive turning point. That wasn't just an event, it was proof that AOS had life at our store. Seeing painted armies, competitive games, and new players learning and returning, it felt like the start of something real. And something that I'm proud of, a vibe that we built. No gatekeeping, no intimidating, no you have to know everything. Just learning together and helping each other and encouraging hobby progress and making sure that everyone felt welcome at the table. Watching new players walk in nervous and leave excited, that's what this hobby is about. And 2025 proved that if you cared about a community and stayed consistent, Age of Sigmar grows. And honestly, that's the accomplishment that means the most to me this year. For me, rolling recklessly was easily one of the biggest personal risks and accomplishments of my entire hobby journey this year. What started out as just an idea of me wanting to talk Age of Sigmar, sharing my experience and hype the game and document the community we were building, turned into a real weekly show for its structure, identity, and purpose. I didn't just want to make a podcast, I wanted to make something that felt like sitting at the table with friends after a game night. Something that mixed lore, hobby, gameplay, and community, because that's what Age of Sigmar actually is. Over 2025, we built lore deep dive factions through canon timeline, faction focus episodes, gameplay and meta breakdowns, hobby reflections, local community promotions, tournament coverage, and a show identity that felt uniquely ours. But what this podcast became for me personally goes even deeper than Warhammer. Rolling recklessly honestly helped carry me through some really hard times this year when I was going through treatment. It gave me something to focus on, something to look forward to, something creative and positive when life felt really heavy for me. Recording episodes and building armies for content, planning shows, creating graphics, it kept my mind busy and my spirit up. It reminded me that when things are tough, I still had something I loved and something I was building. The show wasn't just a hobby project, it became my motivation, therapy, and purpose wrapped into one. It kept me connected to the community, kept me excited about the game, and honestly helped push me forward into where I needed that spark. And because of that, Rolling Recklessly didn't just document 2025, it became part of the reason I made it through 2025 stronger. And going into 2026, I want this show to grow even bigger and reach it to even more players who love this hobby and need the same escape and joy. Looking into 2026, honestly think Age of Sigmar is entering one of its strongest eras yet. 2025 laid the groundwork for something big. We saw new players jump in constantly, Spearhead became a massive gateway into the hobby, and multiple factions rise into competitive relevance. The game feels faster, cleaner, and more accessible than ever, and that momentum is only going to keep building. The biggest thing I predict in 2026, Spearhead growth explodes. More factions will get Spearhead boxes, more stores will run Spearhead nights, and it's going to continue to become the true entry point for new players. I also fully expect GW to release new Spearheads along each new battle tome, just like they've started doing, and hopefully follow up with that refreshed board and card pack for the next season, the same way they supported it last year. On the battle tome front, this year is already shaping up to be big. OC Archbone Reapers, Lumineth, and Tzeentch have just officially been announced, and the Ogres rumor is starting to feel very real. They desperately need a refresh and new models. But the big prediction for me, Sylvaneth. I'm predicting Sylvaneth gets their battle tome this year. I really hope so. With the General's Handbook heavily featuring in Ghyran, the Realm of Life, and their literal home, it would make no sense to leave them untouched. I'll honestly be shocked if GW does not capitalize on that synergy. I'm also hoping that we'll see a brand new Elven faction from Mulgu, the Realm of Shadow. Probably not this year, but it's definitely one of my dream releases. And as for the General's Handbook, I expect 2026 to stay similar to this season because it was such a success. The seasonal formations, Titan designs, and identity worked incredibly well, and I hope that GW keeps refining that instead of changing direction. Meta-wise, what I expect for recursion factions to stay strong, Soulblight Gravelords, Skaven, and Nurgle, especially with their new book. Expect KO to keep rising in more competitive play. I'm hoping that Chaos Dwarves become more serious contenders, and objectives and positioning matter more than kills. Terrain is going to continue to shape the battlefield. And most importantly, I think we'll see more local AOS communities grow everywhere, because Spearhead is making the game easier than ever to get into. AOS isn't slowing down, it's building momentum for something even bigger. Looking ahead personally into 2026, my goals are really about continuing the momentum that 2025 created, but leveling everything up another notch. First and foremost, I want Rolling Recklessly to grow even bigger. More episodes, more consistency, more guests, more reach. I want this podcast to become something that people rely on for iOS hype, lore, gameplay talk, and community connections. I want to keep building the local AOS scene at J&J. I want more Spearhead nights, more events, more teaching new players, more tournaments, more watching people walk in nervous and leave excited about one of my favorite hobbies. On the hobby side, I want to finish some big goals. I want my Sylvaneth 100% painted. I want to build and expand my Soulblight and Troll Battle Force boxes. I want to grow my KO fleet and finally grab an Ironclad and maybe a Brock. I also want to start building my Ideneth. I would love to pick up like a Spearhead or two and maybe some Alapexes. I also want to keep shrinking my backlog by actually finishing what I buy. Gameplay-wise, I want to keep improving. More reps, more patience, smarter decisions. I've learned a lot about my weaknesses, valuing fights over tactics and patience, and I want to tighten that up. But honestly, the biggest goal is simple. Keep having fun, keep building the community, keep rolling dice with my friends, and keep growing this hobby space. And 2025 proved that that's possible. 2026 is about pushing that even further. And just like that, we closed the book on Season 1 of Rolling Recklessly. 2025 was more than just another year in Age of Sigmar for me. It was growth in every direction, as a player, as a hobbyist, as a content creator, and as part of a community that didn't even really exist this time last year. This was the year armies multiplied, dice rolled nonstop, new players walked into the new hobby, friendships grew stronger at the table, and Rolling Recklessly became something real, something bigger than I ever expected when I first hit record. To everyone who listens this season, supported the show, joined the Discord, rolled dice with me locally, painted alongside us at J&J, or just followed the journey from afar, thank you so much. This podcast and this community exists because people care about Age of Sigmar and want to see it grow. Taking a break these last couple of months wasn't planned, but coming back and ending the season the way felt right. Reflecting on what we built, everything we learned, everything still ahead reminds me exactly why I started the show in the first place. So Season 2 is coming up. More lore, more factions, more gameplay, more community, and more reckless rolls. The Mortal Realms aren't done with us yet. And until next time, may your crits be high, your paint never dry, and your rolls ever reckless.